All right, hello and welcome everybody. It's Doug here with thelincolnlist.com. I want to welcome you back to another episode of Happy Hour. This is number 17, I believe. And if you followed along with the channel, unfortunately, I've had to take a couple of weeks off. I had to go back to my homeland to attend a funeral, which is never a good thing to do, but I tried to make the most out of it. I did a couple of rants while I was there. I put the links here below if you'd like to take a look at them. So I got a decent story to tell you about that trip. We'll get to that a little bit later, as well as stocks. But before that, we're going to test our whiskey for today because I'd like to get lubed up prior to telling this story. Our guest star for the day will be Chivas, spelled with a C, Chivas Regal blended Scotch whiskey. As you can see, I've already opened it up before, so sorry to spoil it. Now, this was a Christmas gift from my girlfriend's best friend, Mercedes. Bless her heart for buying me a scotch. It's a fantastic gift, like the best ever. And it's a cute name, isn't it, Mercedes? I've met a lot of people named Mercedes, but you know what? I've never met anybody named BMW. I'll be here all week. Anyway, let's get back to the point. Now, this is a blended Scotch whiskey. We've talked about blended Scotches before. And they're usually I want to put like air quotes, a cheaper version of Scotch, but it doesn't mean they taste bad. It's just a way to keep the cost down of distilling the Scotch. And it's usually like a single malt combined with a grain whiskey. You know, it's not specifically high-end made or like Lafroig or Lagavulin or specific kind of taste, Blended Scotches have a mix. That's exactly what they are. Again, it doesn't mean they taste horrible or they're no good. Some people love these tastes. And this Chivas, I've had it before, obviously. It's a pretty good brand. It's going to run you about $25 to $35 depending on where you get it. That fits in with like the Finlaggan, some of the Dewars, Johnny Walkers. And I would say compared to those brands, this is probably a little bit better tasting than the others. It's got a nice mid-colored taste, smooth. Like I said, I've already had this before. And somewhat sweet, very close to something that you might get a bourbon. So if you really don't like Scotch and you like bourbons, this is something that's just right above the taste of a bourbon. So if you're looking for a Scotch to drink that's similar to a bourbon, this Chivas is pretty good. Now the story here with Chivas, as you know, these whiskey companies write some great stuff on their website about where this whiskey came from. In fact, they're so good with some of the stuff that they write. They should write the bio on my website. I should hire some of these people. According to their website, back in the 1700s, there's these two brothers. I believe there's John and Joe. No, excuse me, James. James and Joe. Chivas, the Chivas brothers. So there's two little kids here, teenagers. They're like running around on this isolated farm castle. They live in a castle. It's like a farm, and they're just doing farm stuff in Scotland in the 1700s. And they're like, you know what? We're not going to get anywhere up here, all isolated in this farmland on the water. We got to make something of ourselves. So they look at each other, and John says, you know what? We got to get out of here. So they grab like a couple of things, like a satchel, and they just start walking. And like 3 days later, they end up in Aberdeen, Scotland. And that's how these people roll. I mean, can you imagine if we had to live that way? I mean, that's just like normal business. Like those people used to like grab a pair of slacks, walk 6 days to get some grains, then walk back home. We're such sissies. So anyway, these two brothers end up apparently in Aberdeen, Scotland. And somewhere in this, they end up in the emporium business, selling stuff. And they do very well and start their own emporium called the Chivas Brothers. So here they are, they're just kind of rolling deep, selling these exquisite luxury goods. And they do so well that they get a royal warrant from the Queen. So here's these two little dudes from a farm all the way up north in Scotland somewhere, walk their way to Aberdeen and end up a few years later with like this huge business. And like, right there neck and neck with the Queen, like rubbing elbows right with the Queen. Pretty good, huh? I mean, these dudes did it right. So anyway, as they're doing well, they decide they want to do something special for this world. And that special thing is to create the world's first luxury, exquisite, high-end brand of Scotch whiskey, which you know today as Chivas Regal. Now, according to the website, this is the same recipe. So back in the 1920s, on the Titanic or whatever it was, or all the rich people were the only ones that could afford this bottle. But now with the way that the world is, you can get this great bottle for $25 to $30 at your local convenience store. Amazing, right? So this was their creation. And they do really well with this. So these guys are doing good just about with everything. They decide to get world domination. And the only way to do that is come right here to America. So they get on a boat and, they just grab their satchels again, a pair of slacks and pants, and boom, 1909, they find themselves in America. And they start a little distillery, importing their whiskey, sharing it with the people. So anyway, they do well. I mean, these are like, these people know how to get business done. They do like well at everything. I don't even read it on this website. I don't even seem like they had a bad day. Like these two brothers were like knocking things out of the park. So anyway, unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. Timing is everything. Timing in life is everything. And they get caught in Prohibition. They have to take a back seat there. And after Prohibition, they bring back their whiskey. And they continue to produce that whiskey until like the 40s when Seagram's eventually bought it out. Now, this still distilled in their hometown. I think it's called I can't pronounce it. It's embarrassing for me to even try. But that's where it's distilled now. And it's imported here. So it's a pretty good story, huh? Pretty good whiskey, pretty good story. And you know what? Congrats to you, John and Joe Chivas, for giving us this great whiskey and walking all the way to Aberdeen, Scotland, and getting on a boat and coming to America so us lazy people can enjoy your whiskey for $25 at Bevmo. Amazing times we live in. Cheers to you guys. So, let's get down to the story. Like I said, unfortunately, it seems like the only time I ever go back home to see my family anymore is because of a funeral or some emergency. Now, I don't get back often, and I should do more. A lot of people are nostalgic about their hometown. Like, oh, I love the way my hometown smells. I love the way my hometown feels. I can't stand my hometown. And I shouldn't be that way. And I don't know where the bitterness comes from. I tried to fix it, but for some reason, every time I go back, it's just so depressing. I go back for a couple weeks. It's the wrong circumstances to go. My dad doesn't even have any internet. It's just one of these things. I don't know. Just going back there is so depressing. I've tried everything. I shouldn't be this way. I know I shouldn't, but I don't know why. Anyway, the story I want to tell is every time you go to a funeral, it's like this big eye-opening experience for you. Because the standard, I'm sure it's this way for funerals that you attend, the standard funeral usually involves pictures of the deceased. And everyone gets to get up and say something about their experience or their life experience with the deceased. And they show all these pictures about their whole entire life. I can't help but think that every time I'm at a funeral or a service like that, if I were to die, who would show up and what would they say about me? So if this total stranger walks off the street and just attends your service, what would they say? What would they come away from about you? What would your life story be? Would they say, man, this dude lived above and beyond. He was like the Chivas brothers. He got whiskey, he got emporiums, he met the queen, he traveled the world, he made a difference everywhere that he went. Or was he just a nobody, just under the rug of dust, right? And nobody wants to go out like a nobody, right? Nobody wants to do that. Like, you remember Steve Buscemi's character in the Big Lebowski? It's like the Big Lebowski, the dude, John Goodman's character. They're sitting there after he dies and they cremate him. They don't want to pay $180 to get his ashes, so they put him in a coffee can. And then they spread him over the ocean and they blow back in the dude's face. It's a pretty cool movie. But nobody wants to go out like that, right? So the point here is, we've talked about this in a lot of rants. When you're a younger person, life really centers around you. And sometimes you get older, life continues to, if you're narcissistic, it continues to center around you. But true happiness and true wealth comes not just from what you are able to achieve by what you get, but what you are also able to give back to others. There's this huge meaning in life when you do that. So what I'm saying is, it's not just about you all the time. There's a bigger picture out there. And you should be in the frame of mind where you want to leave more to this earth than what it is. Leave the earth better than what you came into it, right? You want to leave it off better than where you entered. And as I get older, I've mentioned this before as well, it becomes more and more evident that life is not just about you and your achievements personally, but it's also about that legacy that you will lead? What will be your purpose outside of your job? What will be your purpose outside of your sole means of income? What will be that thing that ignites you? Is it an animal charity? Is it, helping underprivileged people? What is that gets you, fulfilled? And that's how you live a fulfilled existence. So anyway, that's enough of that rant. Let's move on and start talking about stocks. All right, so we'll start out here by taking a look at the market, and you know what? It's just the market. It just keeps on melting up higher. The volume is very, very light, and some of the intraday moves haven't been that exciting. One of the stats that I saw this week, and I don't know if it's still intact, but I think that it is that this is the longest point in history that the market has not made an intraday 1% move. So it shows you volatility is zapped. I don't know if people are sitting on their hands or what the case is, but the volatility is gone right now from the market. That doesn't mean there's not other opportunities. It's just this overall functioning of the market is much different and one of the longest period in time. Now we had a big day, a big move on Thursday. I think it was close to 1%, but I'm not sure. But still, a very long period of time with not very much wild swings in the market. So you got this thing at all-time highs. Seems like it's just clicking out at all-time highs. It's probably just going to continue. I think right now that's what's happening. A lot of people are sitting on their hands, waiting to see how some of these policies from the new administration play out before they're willing to put some big money to work. So you're seeing these small bets being played across the board. There are a few really good opportunities here, and we saw a lot of these on Friday. The last couple of days put some good parabolics up, that I like to short. One is this ATVI, and this was a pretty good trade for us on Friday. Got a nice little ramp. I love if I can remember, I'll put a link here. I did a video before about this ramp trade. This is a nice move when a stock breaks out a high a day and then just starts clicking in volume. You can see the price here increases heavily and you got heavy volume on it. These are good to short into because it's very hard to sustain that. It's just a scalp trade. It's just a short-term trade. This is all you get, a nice little pullback. But it's a pretty high probability trade. So this ATV closed it high, looking for follow-through on that one going into Monday. Also, SWIR, same thing. You got the ramp and camp going on. You get these nice big parabolic strong moves in the morning, but then these things just kind of pull back into the VWAP or nearby move, a short-term moving average, and then you just kind of flatline throughout the rest of the day. So this one held up relatively well. So if you're looking to long, I think if you start breaking out above the 25-23 area, which was today's high, you could see another move, maybe 27s, 28s. You could get a nice vert. If it does do that and you get something, you miss that trade, then it would probably be better to short if it gets vertical like you saw here on Friday where you get a couple of big pairs. It'll be hard to get those considering that this was right after earnings and day two. You really don't see this kind of vert move, but this is something that's pretty nice. One stock that I do like here is this MDCO. I liked it last week as a buy. This was a good flag pattern on the daily, ripping here and then holding its gains and then gearing up for a second move. And the second move is big, going from 46 to 50. Now they've got earnings coming up here, which is the 15th. And, I don't like to hold through earnings, but I think this is a pretty good short here, especially if this thing goes above 51 to 50, maybe 52s to 53s first thing Monday morning. This is a big move, and it's going into earnings. And the thing you have to take into consideration is like an NVDA, which was a big stock this week, is that when a stock makes a big run up, let me pull up NVIDIA for everyone. When a stock makes a long-term run or it's very, very bullish, and you're going to always have every year your handful of stocks that just keep going up relentlessly. When they go into earnings, they're expected to do so well. I mean, they have to say all of the right things, do all of the right things, or the stock just gets crushed, because there's been so much expectation put on them. And you can see that's what happened with NVIDIA. This thing was, last earnings, a $60 stock. This earnings, a $120 stock. So things going up 100% over the last few months. So they have to continue to build on their previous earnings, and it just wasn't enough for them, at least right now. And NVIDIA gets sold off. So I think you might be seeing the same thing here with MDCO. Also, MDSO already had their earnings, and you see they have day 2. It's a real big vert, 2 days in a row. I like this one here as well. Same thing as a short. If it gaps and goes, you got to have that gap and go. You have to have that para just like you had both on the earnings day. It had a gap, and then you also had the gap here on Friday. So this was a good short right at the open. With the market melting up, it kind of floated this stock. But if it continues to do that, that's a good trade right there. It's collecting that cash from the gap up and then just kind of shorten it right into that. All right, I want to thank everybody for listening to my little rant today. Glad to do another happy hour. I give Chivas Regal, give it a pretty good thumbs up. It's not too bad of a blended whiskey. Probably one of the better ones that you're going to find in the $25 to $35 range. And it's prevalent. You'll find it just about everywhere. Every restaurant, every bar will serve it. And it won't break the bank and gives you a pretty good taste. Anyway, have a good week of trading. Until next time, cheers.